For the day. Julian Hill is the Assistant Minister for Multicultural Affairs. We were originally going to have Liberal Senator James McGrath on, but he's resigned from the shadow cabinet. So Allegra Spender, Independent MP for Wentworth, joins us now. Although she's not just a...
Oh, thank you.
You're not just a ring-in. We like having you on the program, but I think it was important to mention that clearly James McGrath had other plans and hasn't come on. So let's start with the Liberal leadership, even though you're both not in the Liberal Party, but it is interesting. A comment was just made by Paul Scar, who's a frontbencher for the Liberals, but is a supporter of Susan Lee. He said that the Labor Party will weaponise the Liberal Party, you know, moving on its first woman leader. Is that what you're going to do?
I don't think it's weaponising. I addressed this in the House today, and I think earlier in your program you showed an astounding photo. I was sitting in the Prime Minister's chair for the hour before question time.
How did that feel?
I did some work. I did my job. But Angus Taylor got up, he gave a 90-second statement, he thought it was Churchillian, actually it was a word salad, literally there was not a concept of value, an idea, a proposal, a reason for him running there, but he was surrounded by about 10 men. I mean, that's not weaponising. The fact is, since day one, since he lost the leadership, he set out to undermine the first female leader of the Liberal Party. I mean, that's a fact, that's not weaponising. I'm proud to be a part of a government PK that's 52% women, that represents modern Australia, that looks and feels like modern Australia. I mean, the fact is, they're not. The same man in the same blue suit, you can't tell them apart sometimes, has spent the last 9 months trying to rip down the first woman to lead their party. I'll just make one more point. I mean this very genuinely, I've said it for 3 years to anyone who'll listen, that the fact that Allegra Spender is not on their front bench or the leader of the Liberal Party says everything that's wrong about them today. You have centrist politics. You don't sit with the Labor Party. There's a lot we agree on. I think you're sensible on climate change. I think you're sensible on social issues. We've never chatted about industry policy. You and I agree on social cohesion. We have many private conversations. I don't agree with you on unions or a lot of economic policy. I mean, the fact that you're not there and people like you is everything that shows why they're dying.
OK. Is it gendered?
It's hard to say. I mean, I don't say that it is gendered, but I think the issue for me really is that there aren't any women standing behind her as the next leader, because that's the thing that gets me. Like, if people say she's not the right leader at the time, you know, I accept that. And to be honest, being the first leader of an opposition out of a massive election defeat, it's really hard. So, you know, a lot of men have fallen, you know, in similar times. I think the issue is that only 1 in 5 people in the Liberal Party in the House are women. So the ability for the Liberal Party to build, you know, for not to be an issue whether it's a man or a woman in the chair, it's impossible, because 1 in 5 women, that hasn't moved in 25 years. And that is really, for me, that's the heart of it. Until they can actually work out how to pre-select and get women elected, because women want to stand and people are happy to elect them, I think then they won't ever really deal with the gender issue.
Given you are one of the Teal independents, you won a seat that used to be obviously a jewel of the crown for the Liberal Party and is no longer, is Angus Taylor the kind of leader that will win voters back away from people like you?
Look, you know, I don't take my votes for granted, so, you know, time will tell if he gets it. But I think the question genuinely is, what is he going to offer that my community is asking for? And they do expect, actually, you know, both economic but appropriate action on climate change, science-based and efficient action on climate change. They do expect economic policy that is rational. And he was the Shadow Treasurer into the last election, and I can't say that he covered himself in glory. I mean, one of the issues I have with, you know, question time today, and we were just talking about this earlier, you know, because they're in such disarray, you can't actually say to the government, you know, we do have some economic challenges right now. There should be pressure, but what the government can say is, well, you had a worse policy going into the last election, and they're right. So this is the great challenge: is he wasn't a great Shadow Treasurer. So, you know, time will tell. But there's a long way to go. There's a lot to be proven that he can actually lead in a place like mine.
I think in terms of scrutiny of the government, it's a good point. There hasn't been much focus on the government. Today's the Closing the Gap statement. I'm going to speak to Melinda McCarthy, the Minister, soon, because I think it's important that we scrutinise policy and whether it's working, and that one's not working very well. But either way, it's sucking up a lot of airtime, and that's natural as well. Also, though, You're taking a few free kicks, aren't you? I mean, people notice some hubris when you kick Angus Taylor in question time and you have fun. I understand it seems tantalising, but there's a risk there, isn't there?
Sure, any government has a risk of overreach if they look arrogant. You and I talked about this before, PK. I genuinely do not buy the narrative of hubris. It's not how our internal discussions are. It's not how we approach policy. The question time theatrics, sure, people unfortunately judge the parliament at times by the craziest stuff that people put on TV. Allegra and I are here for, what, 12 hours a day or more? Most of the parliament is not like the little bits that the media choose to put on TV, and that's, that's a choice.
We choose it because they're offering it.
Well, people like conflict. That's what people put on TV. It doesn't actually represent, I'll make this point, the work of the bulk of the parliament. But I just want to make another point. The collapse of the centre, the complete clown show circus chaos that is the former Today coalition tomorrow, Australians deserve better. We need a functioning opposition, not just to hold governments to account, but to be an alternative government. That's how a Westminster system works, and we do not have that now. Australians deserve better. I think, and I've had these conversations, it puts a moral imperative on those of us who are members of the government to perform well, because right now I do not see an alternative for Australia. That's not hubris, that's an objective fact when you look across. But the final thing I'll just say, and it goes to, I know, work you've been doing, deep, thoughtful journalism, for my community, but for millions of Australians, one of the worst aspects of this chaos is the space that it's creating for the normalisation of extremist right-wing politics, Pauline Hanson, One Nation and that brigade. When Australians turn on their TV and look at the chaos and the division and at times now violence and hate in parts of the Americas or Europe, they don't want that here. And that's what One Nation and that kind of extremist politics wants to bring and threatens to import, and it is seducing people into with funny memes on social media. The coalition have to get their act together.
But I'm going to say, I think that passes too much to the coalition. I think that the government is responsible for delivering on the issues that people are worried about. And I don't think you can just blame it on the coalition. I think it has to be, is the government dealing with the genuine concerns and grievances? And, I said to you, again, I think I look at Question Time today, they're very, people are very funny. But the truth is, if you ask somebody who's just had an interest rate hike, who is worried about, your cost of living, you'd look at Question Time and be a bit disgusted, because there's so much focus around having jokes and having a go at Angus Taylor and stuff like that. It's not actually about some of the most important issues that the country faces. And so it is up to the government not just to blame the coalition, but to say, OK, what are the grievances that people are, face and that are considering turning to different parties, and how do you actually address that and bring them back to the centre? Because I think that's where most of Australia is.
OK, I want to segue